When most people hear this album, they hear this. When I hear this album, I hear this. Hello and welcome, Wisdom Seekers. I am here with a new series entitled The Wizard Rants, and today I'm going to have a little story time about my first recording experience with my band Debility. Alright, and strap in because it's fucking annoying. So the reason I'm doing this video in the first place is because I just came out with a new single with my band Debility called Blutfaust, and we did all of this ourselves. I'm going to do a separate video as to the pros and cons and the differences between studio recording and home recording, but this is exclusively about studio recording, and it made me, after realizing the lengths that we went in the studio, why I needed to do this. So, alright, so first we gotta backtrack. Where this originally starts was, the band formed in 2010. I was in high school, I was a sophomore. Fast forward to 2013, I had just graduated from high school. And we were finally getting ready to actually start recording something. I had just gotten a job, and we were looking forward to actually getting music out there, doing real shows. We'd only done, I think, 3 shows total, all of them which were at my high school. There's actually video of that somewhere. So it was December, and we had this studio booked already. It was like a local, home studio. It was still technically a real studio, though, because this guy had, professional everything for the most part. He had a rack with all the, instruments and gear and blah, blah, blah. He had, everything professional. We used his orange half stack, and, we were really optimistic. We had never done anything like this before. The only things we'd ever really recorded were home demos that were recorded literally either live on a Sansa Clip MP3 player, because it had a little microphone on it, and then we throw that in Audacity, or maybe I think like 2 years after the band formed, I got a Tascam digital recorder, so I could plug my crappy Line 6 Spider into it, record the guitar for that. That was the first time I actually used a metronome and stuff. So, we did some scratch tracks, brought it to the studio, things went off pretty well, at least we thought that they were, and that's the problem. So when we were recording the guitars and stuff, I was told that the guitars would be reamped, so we wouldn't have to worry about the tone coming out of the amp if I didn't like it. That was the first thing I ever heard of reamping. I didn't know much about studio recording at all. All I knew was what we had attempted to do without anybody's help. So that was on our bad. We went into this as noobs, and we weren't really explained anything of how things worked. So we just kind of recorded to the click track and sat there, listened to how it was mixed roughly, and we thought it sounded pretty kick-ass. Then things started going awry. So the total of recording dates initially was late December, and then around like March and April of 2014. We ended up looking to do some shows because we hadn't done any real shows yet. And we had a couple of the rough mixes that we put on a sampler CD and we're handing out at shows. And we're like, oh, music's coming out soon. Keep a lookout, which, most bands do. And, we were like, oh, okay, hopefully we should expect something, by the end of the year. Wrong. It turned out that not only did the person that we went to he redid some of the drum parts, and some of the fills and some of the just beats in general were like mixed up. The guy just kind of, switched things around, and that pissed off our drummer. So that was fun. A couple things had to be re-recorded, and that was, our own fault because we were still getting used to the studio setting and all that stuff, so we can't blame, our engineer for that. But the mixing portion was where things just started to get super fucked up. So we asked for a mix, and we got back a mix, and it was, it was okay. You couldn't really hear the rhythm guitars. That was kind of a problem. and we were like, hey, send us another mix, which he didn't charge us for. He didn't charge us for extra mixes, which is cool. We just paid for the recording and then for the mastering, because it was like a bundle. And, you know, that was fine. But every single time we were sent a mix, something was wrong with it. And not just like, oh, you know, there's a little bit of treble area here that needs to be, you know, cut at like X, you know, hertz. No. There were mixes that he sent us where the guitars were turned off, the vocals were turned off, there's no bass, one of the drums is missing. And it was like, dude, like, are you paying attention to the mix that you're sending us? Like, are you listening to it before you send it? Or are you just kind of like, whatever? Because it took him days in between to respond to our emails. And he didn't live nearby. You know, we're all busy and we're all kids. We're all going to college and shit. And, you know, this is supposed to be his job. And yet he can't even prioritize to make sure that he's sending us the things he's supposed to. Usually it's the other way around. Usually the musicians are to blame, and it's because they're inexperienced, like we were. But we literally just had to be at his whim to do the thing he was supposed to do. So after a bunch of stupid mixes that once we got the full version, you know, of course something, oh, we need to add something to it, blah, blah, blah. Let's go back, do a couple more recording sessions, throw in a few more things, and then we'll be done. Okay, fine. We did that, then started getting the dumb mixes back again, with things wrong with them and things missing, and it was just a pain in the ass. And at this point, it's approaching, I think it was near the end of 2015. This had been 2 years that we were working on 4 goddamn tracks. And that was really starting to piss me off, because it's like, okay, I know that because the engineer had apparently moved studios. He wasn't in a house anymore. He went to a professional studio in Chicago. And we were like, okay, well, that's cool, but you shouldn't be taking other projects as priority when you haven't even finished the other ones that you're supposed to finish. Like, that's not good business, dude. So another thing that this guy did was we were supposed to record a song that had a couple of tempo changes. And, you know, that's fairly easy to do. You just program the metronome. So for the end portion of one of the songs, I told him what the BPM was, and he didn't throw on a metronome. Instead, what he did was he said, just play it how you usually play it, and we will stretch the time in post. Stop doing that. Stop doing the whole in post thing. If you can do it, because that just fucks things up, and it makes it so, like, oh man, you can hear in the song at the end that it's like stretched and chopped, and the notes are like placed where the violin is recorded. So it's just stupid. Like, if you can play to a metronome, make that motherfucker put a metronome on there, because it's so much easier, and there's so much less work to do, and it sounds more authentic. It was annoying too, because we ended up seeing like posts on Facebook and Instagram and shit where he's like, oh, working with this other band, just finished their project, wow, so proud of these guys, it sounds great, hope they do well in their career. And it's like, dude, what about our stuff? Like, it's done. Fucking mix it and give it back to us. And eventually I sent him a message on Facebook, and I'm like, hey, you know, we're not trying to be an asshole, but I'm really looking for my mixes. Like, what's going on here? It's been way too long. And he tries to, like, get at me. He's like, well, you know, you can't blame me when, you know, you blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, listen, dude. The only thing that we did wrong is the fact that we didn't get up your ass about doing your fucking job. Get us our mixes. And he got us our mixes, and we haven't talked to him since. And, like, honestly, if he ever was like, oh, yo, I'm sorry for the things, you know, that I did, and, like, I should have been more professional, you know, let me do a recording for you, I'd say, fuck no, because I don't want to risk that shit again, and honestly, I'm never going to go to a real studio again. I know what I'm doing now, and we can get it done ourselves. This is actually a clip of the new song that we recorded all by ourselves. So yeah, it sounds pretty fucking kick-ass. Compared to the studio stuff that we did, there's really not much of a difference at all. It sounds professional. So you can definitely get away with doing things yourself. and I even made the lyric video myself as well. You know, just free software that I downloaded called VSDC. So, I mean, so the moral of the story is don't let other people be the decision of what's happening with your material. If they're not doing things right, if they're underperforming, you gotta let them know. You gotta let them know soon, because waiting 3 years for music to come out and it's only 4 songs, it's ridiculous. Like you just shouldn't ever allow that to happen. And that was definitely a learning experience. You know, it's been we've had other issues recording, which I will definitely talk about in another video. Those were all on the faults of, you know, assorted band members, and that's another thing that will have to be addressed. But moral of the story is, make sure you're on top of your shit if other people aren't going to be. And honestly, that entire experience made me like really hesitant, and the rest of us hesitant to like work with people in the studio, and so we were much more like scrutinous of the things that we did and like how we recorded and all that stuff. But that also affected things. So for the first time since 2016, it's now 2021, we're releasing a single. And by the end of the year, there will be an EP out, because we can decide that. I literally founded my record label and started like recruiting other bands that were local, because I wanted to help make sure that they didn't go through that same experience, because it was a pain in the ass and it was really defeating, because after a certain amount of time, it felt like we weren't gonna get anywhere, and this was never gonna happen. We wasted our money and nothing's ever gonna come of it, and we're never gonna get our mixes, and you know, it felt like we should just give up. And that's bullshit. You shouldn't ever allow someone else to make you feel that way. It should be your own damn fault if you feel that way, and you can then say, I did something wrong here, and now I'm gonna do this instead to fix it. You have to take your career into your own hands, because no one else is gonna do it for you. Well, that's really it that I have to say about this. There's definitely going to be more rant videos, because I've got a lot of shit to say about some experiences that I've had. So stay tuned for more of those. And if you want to help support me, check out the links down below. There's the link for my video, a link for my t-shirt company, and also my record label. So yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also remember that the human ear cannot hear below 20 hertz. Until next time, the wizard has spoken.